A night, a bus ride, and one door that changed my life. Number 1622, the 3rd of May 2026. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category, MIT and Professor Norman Jones. Preface. In 1995, 24 years after I entered Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 1972, I achieved success in the high-tech industry in Silicon Valley. Even today, my AI-driven semiconductor transistor placement and electrical wire routing algorithm remains embedded beneath billions of AI chips, quietly supporting nearly every commercialized software system in the world. However, after suffering from 5 heart attacks since 1994, along with multiple diagnoses in 2010 of kidney failure, severe neuropathy that nearly led to a toe amputation, and retinopathy that brought me close to blindness, I made a life-changing decision. I chose to leave the Silicon Valley technology world and began my self-study and research in medicine in 2010 at the age of 63, without any institution, professors, colleagues, or patients, completely on my own. For the next 7 years, I read, learned, and studied continuously from published medical journal articles, often relying on a dictionary to understand the terminology. I worked 10 to 12 hours a day, every day, year after year. Finally, I wrote my very first diabetes research article and presented it at the World Health Organization International Diabetes Federation C conference on December 7, 2017, in Abu Dhabi, UAE. Since 2018 until now, May 3, 2026, I have written and released a total of 1,622 research papers. This morning, after waking up, I thought about my past life. My meeting with Professor Norman Jones at Massachusetts Institute of Technology on July 31, 1972, was the turning point of my life journey, just like the pivoting points of many mortality diseases I have faced in my life. My story and reflection. On July 29, 1972, a Saturday, I was still working as a full-time janitor in New Jersey while attending school classes during the night hours. My janitor job was simple but exhausting. By that time, I had cleaned over 1,000 toilets to support my graduate school studies in Hoboken, New Jersey. In the middle of that long night of July 30, 1972, I made a vital decision that would completely change my life. I decided to go to MIT for my PhD study. MIT was my ultimate dream institution since age of 15. At that time, I did not even know where MIT or Boston was. I had never been there in my life. I only knew one thing: if I did not try, I would remain where I was and could not see any light in my future. Near midnight on July 30, 1972, I boarded a Greyhound bus from the New York 42nd Street Times Square terminal. The ride took about 6 hours. Early in the morning of July 31, 1972, I arrived in downtown Boston. Around 7 o'clock a.m., I found the campus of Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I sat on the marble steps at the main entrance on Massachusetts Avenue, waiting quietly for the offices to open. At 9 o'clock a.m., I began knocking on professors' doors. My academic background was not strong. At the University of Iowa, my GPA was 3.0, AB average in Iowa's graduate school system. C was considered failure, B was average and passing, and A was superior. I had failed my first master's semester with Preface. It took me 2 more years to climb back, earning Preface, for BS, and for S. The result was still just a B with a 3.0 average GPA. However, during that time, I went back to study undergraduate courses in both computer science and mechanical engineering. In effect, I completed the equivalent of 2 undergraduate degrees and 1 master's degree in biomechanics. After that, I spent an more year at Stevens Institute of Technology in a PhD program in ocean fluid dynamics, where I earned straight A grades, but 1 year was not enough to receive any degree. On paper, I was not impressive at all. I had no money, no connections, and no strong academic record. I had about $1,000 in my pocket from working as a full-time janitor cleaning many toilets and a fluid dynamics laboratory for ship design testing. At that time, MIT tuition was already $4,000 per semester in 1972. From 9 o'clock a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on July 31, 1972, I knocked 18 professors' doors and received 18 immediate rejections, some polite and some very blunt. Many of those professors later became the ones whose courses I took. No one accepted me. Most of those professors rejected me because of my poor academic record. Others rejected me because I had no funding, but I refused to leave. I am not a person who quits. easily. I noticed that some office doors were locked, so I kept waiting for the next one to open. At around 4:30 p.m., I saw a young-looking professor walking toward one of those offices. As he opened the door, I followed him in. That professor was Norman Jones. He looked at me calmly and asked, "How can I help you?" At first, I gave him my transcripts from both the University of Iowa and Stevens Institute of Technology. Professor Jones was very different from other professors. He looked over my academic records carefully and did not make any sarcastic comments or insult me. Instead, he simply said, "It is good because your academic performance data and curve are concave upward. This is a mathematical term." What he meant was that my academic grades were improving semester after semester. Instead of looking at my GPA, which is only an average number, he saw my trajectory of improvement. I believe that is why, until today, in my medical research work, I do not focus on overall average test results, which are only statistical snapshots. I look at the health trajectory, like a movie that contains thousands of snapshots. Most importantly, a trajectory shows movement over time and reveals turning points that point toward future trends. I told Professor Jones everything: my background, my failures, my journey, my dream, and what I had been doing all day. He listened quietly, like a perfect British gentleman, few words, calm, and composed. Then he said, "Why don't you go back to New Jersey?" "I will answer you later." I began to mumble to myself. "That means I have to go back and wash another 1,000 toilets for another year." He heard me. He paused, then said, "Come back. Sit down. Tell me what you just said." So I told him the truth, about being a janitor, about cleaning toilets, about my current situation, and about my dream. I could see his facial expression changing, but he still spoke very little. He said, "Go back to New Jersey. I will call you." Then he emphasized, "I will call you. I promise." I returned to New Jersey and waited. At the end of August, about 5 days before the new fall semester started on September 4th, he called me from Massachusetts to New Jersey. "Come over quickly. School is starting 5 days later." Many years later, after my success in developing the world's first portable PC weighing only 12 pounds in 1982, I learned what had happened behind the scenes from Professor Evans, the department chairman. I was told that during that summer, only about 30 professors were on campus instead of the usual around 100 professors. They held a special faculty meeting to discuss my case. I believe MIT had never accepted a student with such a low GPA record before. They voted, and 18 professors said yes, even though they had rejected me earlier on July 31, 1972. They were impressed by my persistence, I guess, but there was one condition. A professor had to volunteer to be my advisor and take full responsibility for me. Professor Jones said yes. That decision changed my life. Years later, we kept in close communication. I visited him biannually in Liverpool, UK. He is probably the only person who has read most of my medical research papers, likely around 1,000 out of my 1,622 written papers. I still highly appreciate his continued valuable comments and meaningful encouragements. His willingness to read my medical research results is the highest compliment I have ever received from him. I feel very proud that I have applied what he taught me at MIT to biomedicine. Even though I am still regarded as a strange outsider by traditional medical researchers, looking back, it was not my GPA, not my background, and not my resources that brought me where I am today. It was a decision made in the middle of a long night on July 30, 1972 in New York City, a 6-hour Greyhound bus ride into the unknown world, receiving 18 rejections, and my stubborn refusal to walk away from my dream. This is not just a story of opportunity. It is a story of strong willpower and never quit persistence, reaching a threshold where effort accumulates until one door finally opens. One door opened at 4:30 p.m. on July 31, 1972. And that was enough to change everything. Later in my life, I have seen this same pattern and similar outcomes repeated throughout my journey. Conclusion: this writing is not a medical research paper. However, I will publish it on YouTube because it is an inspirational story for young people. I want younger generations to understand that life is not decided by a GPA, by how much money you have, by your family background, or by where you came from. What truly matters is your direction, your willpower, your persistence, and your willingness to keep moving forward even when facing repeated rejections. On that single day, July 31, 1972, I received 18 rejections. Most people would have stopped after the third or fifth rejection. I did not stop. I stayed, I waited, and I kept going. That made the difference. At the same time, I must also acknowledge something equally important. Professor Jones not only saw my trajectory, but also showed a kind heart and a willingness to help a stranger with no clear credentials. Without his decision to step forward and take responsibility, my persistence alone would not have been enough. Looking back, that day represents a combination of two forces: persistence from one side and kindness from each other. When these two meet, they can change a life. Professor Jones was one of the main reasons I pursued my charitable programs, helping tens of thousands of worldwide underprivileged students attend college. Even today, I continue to name my education charity the Professor Jones and Professor Andrews Scholarship Program. This same persistence later appeared again in my career. I went through 7 startup failures in Silicon Valley before reaching success. I applied the same mindset and spirit again and again, until one breakthrough finally came. Many years later, I applied this same principle once more to my health and my medical research. Instead of focusing on single numbers or short-term results, I focused on long-term direction and continuous improvement. The same thinking that helped me EclaireMD also helped me survive 9 life-threatening diseases and produce over 1,600 medical research papers within past 9 years. This is the message I want to share with my young readers. Do not judge yourself by where you are today, but by the direction you are moving. If you keep moving in the right direction, one door will eventually open, and sometimes that one door, together with someone's kindness and willingness to help, is enough to change everything in your life. Epilogue. This article is dedicated to Professor Norman Jones, who resides in Liverpool, UK, at the age of 88. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.